Like so many sexual abuse survivors, my guest today decided to go to counseling for one thing, having no idea the root of what she was facing had to do with something else altogether. That realization opened the door to healing. She is here today to share her story. Christina Heath, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. You were a musician, working on your first album, and you decided to go to counseling. What prompted that?
Yeah, I was just noticing some symptoms, as you said earlier, that dealing with anger and different issues and just noticing how I wasn't handling my emotions very well. So went in to just deal with that and ended up uncovering a lot more. Yeah,
how is it? So when did you realize, okay, sexual abuse might actually be at the root of all these other things?
Well, it took seeing someone else share their story, actually, of being assaulted. And I went in and shared with my therapist that I had been assaulted, and it ended up uncovering a lot more abuse that had gone on for actually about 4 years.
Wow. A lot of times we bury those things. I have a very good friend who also went to see a counselor for something, and the counselor said, have you ever been sexually abused? And she didn't call it that, right? Knew there was an incident, but didn't label it that. Sometimes that's the shocking part, like, oh, this happened to me. So I know that you're still in process, and I sometimes think healing might just go on in a lifetime, in a sense, layers and new understandings and learnings. But is there anything you've learned so far about healing from sexual abuse that you can share with us?
Yes, well, it's so important to bring it into the light. For me, I didn't know that it was sexual assault or abuse because I thought it was my fault. And I blamed myself and thought that because I wasn't able to say no, that meant that I was responsible for it. And it's taken many times of Googling the definition of sexual abuse to just reconfirm all the time, is this me? But the important thing is that God goes out after those parts of us, and He's gone after the parts of myself that I've kept hidden. And so through this, I've learned so much about His love and His grace in that.
You mentioned just how you blame yourself, and that's completely common across the board. Doesn't matter if you were 3 or if you were 80. If you're sexually abused, you somehow own it. You know, how do you fight that shame that really tries to keep you silent?
I think it requires the people in my life reconfirming it all the time for me. I go through that doubt a lot in this process, and just bringing it to my counselor and trusted friends and close people journeying with me through this, and just kind of, can we confirm this again? Can you give me permission to know that this wasn't on me, that it's not my fault?
How much courage does it take to start digging up the past like that and really working it through?
Well, it's a really, really hard process. It takes a lot of courage because it's digging up parts of you that you've tried to keep hidden for so long, right? You've lived in denial for many years, and so going to those places, it's probably the hardest thing that you can do, but also the most rewarding, because in the end, there's healing.
And you know, the thing is, and I know this is true even in my own life, when you bury things, they seem like they're gone, but they keep popping up, like you said, anger, something else, a reaction that isn't appropriate to the situation, and you're like, where did that come from? Because it doesn't really go away, does it?
No, never.
So you're working all this through right while the Me Too movement is kind of breaking across the world, and everyone starts talking about sexual abuse, and there's hopefully, and I pray, a new freedom for people to talk about it now. How did that happening at the same time affect you?
Yeah, so I started down counseling just a few months before #MeToo exploded, and it was like waking up one morning to a feed full of stories, right? And since then, for months, it's been just story after story, person after person feeling free to share what's happened in their lives. And so on one hand, it's been very comforting to know that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's kept this hidden. I'm not the only one who struggles with this. And then on the other hand, it's hard, because it's there all the time. It's a constant reminder. And so there's this balance, but there's such a beautiful thing that's happening out of it. And the other temptation is to minimize my own experience, reading other people's stories and thinking, that's worse than what I went through, so my pain isn't real. But it's important to honor our own pain and just to see it for what it is. And
such good words. And I know I mentioned you were working on your album as you're working through all this, and you're going to sing for us in a few minutes, Nothing at All. Did any of what you were learning come into those songs, or this song?
So these songs were written well before I started down this path, and so they had their own stories while they were being written, but they've come together in such a beautiful way while I was recording them, working through all this stuff. And so I was really wrestling with God, like, where were you? And asking Him tough questions. And so then to sing a song about how nothing can separate us from his love while I'm struggling with that and while I'm working through that was so powerful. And so I think it comes together in the recording.
So good. We only have 30 seconds left, but you said an important thing, and I don't want to end without you addressing it. Where was God? You were asking that tough question. Have you found the answer?
He's always here, and he was always there.
So good. Thank you so much for coming to share your story. And for everyone watching, keep praying for Christina and everyone that's had this experience, because it is a journey and it takes a ton of courage. And we just honor you today for coming to share about it and for going on this journey.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And you know what? This is the season. I really believe that this Me Too campaign is God saying that he is not going to look the other way while people are being abused. It is a season to deal with it. It is a season to come out of the dark, come into the light, push shame away. You know, shame is a bully, and the only way to get rid of it is to stand up to it and say, no, there's nothing for me to be ashamed of. This was done to me. I did not choose this. And that is the beginning of your healing. If there's not someone that you can talk to that you feel safe with or that you can trust, that is why we are here. We have 24-hour prayer lines. It is completely anonymous. You don't even have to give your name, but maybe today is the first time you're going to share your story. And that decision is going to start you on a journey of healing that you can't even imagine today. I want to challenge you right now to pick up the phone or write this number down and give us a call, 1-866-273-4444. We'll be right back.